Hello viewers, today I am going to discuss an interesting but important topic of animal behavior, that is reflex or reflex action. Here the learning outcome. The presentation will focus on behavioral aspects, innate behavior, types of innate behavior, reflex action and types of reflex. The word behavior is used in a broad sense in ethology. Since today's topic is related to behavior, let us look what does the term behavior means. Animal behavior is a continuing source of wonder and mystery that sparks the imagination of scientists and public alike. There are many questions regarding animal behavior that still remain unanswered, like how do animals behave, why do animals behave, and why behavior is important for animals. Behavior can be observed right from the simplest single-cell protozoa to most intelligent and highly developed primates. All animals behave for their survival. Two explanations can be assigned to a particular behavior of animal. One is the proximate and the other is the ultimate. To make it more clear, I want to cite an example. Why does a dog eat? The proximate explanation would be because it is hungry, it must eat, which is an immediate short and narrow-sighted explanation. Whereas the ultimate causation has the evolutionary explanation that the dog eats because it must not die of hunger. It must survive to reproduce and leave its progeny for the perpetuation of species. There are different types of animal behavior like innate or instinct behavior, learned behavior, aggressive behavior, social behavior, etc. Before broadly explaining the topic reflex, we should first know what innate behavior is, as reflex is a part of the innate behavior. Innate behavior is a behavior that someone or something is born with. Innate behavior is inherited and is necessary for survival. It is stereotype behavior shared among all members of a species or all members of a sex in a species. Or in otherwise, it is the behavior that develops without obvious environmental influence. Innate behavior in humans would be crying and breathing. As soon as you are born, you cry and breathe. It just happens. There is nothing that really triggers the start of breathing or crying. Innate behaviors do not have to be learned or practiced. They are also called instinctive behaviors. Innate behaviors include things like the need to sleep or a response to danger. Getting something to eat when you are hungry is also an innate behavior. Some common examples of innate behavior: spinning a web by a spider, nest building and parental care of birds, migration pattern of animals, social behavior and animal courtship behavior. So these are the common examples of innate behavior. There are four types of innate behavior. First one, it is the tropism. Tropism are responses in which the direction of the movement is determined by the direction of stimulus. Then next it is the taxis. An automatic movement made by an animal towards or away from a stimulus is a taxis. A taxis is said to be positive if the animal heads directly towards the stimulus and negative if away from it. Then it is reflex. Reflex are considered as the simplest unit of behavior. And last one, it is the instincts. Instincts involve complex and highly rigid pattern of behavior in which numerous muscles, muscle groups and whole organs and organ systems are perfectly coordinated. There are 6 types of tropism. First one, thigmotropism. Growth movements made by plants in response to contact with a solid object are called thigmotropism. These are curvature movements and are most apparently seen in tendrils and twiners. Phototropism. This kind of movement is induced by light. The stem mostly grows and turns towards the source of light, while the roots go away from it. Geotropism. Any reaction to the stimulus of Earth's gravity is called geotropism. Roots are positively geotropic as they grow directly towards the center of gravity. Stems mostly grow away from the center of gravity, hence are negatively geotropic. Hydrotropism. The response in which water acts as a stimulus to cause a curvature is called hydrotropism. Thermotropism. Some of the plant organs markedly respond towards fluctuating atmospheric temperature and exhibit curvature movements. Chemotropism. Certain chemical substances are responsible to bring about curvature movement in plant organs. Penetration of hysteria of parasites into host body and movement of pollen tubes towards the ovary are also examples of chemotropism. Then different categories of taxis. Clinotaxis. Orientation by successive comparison of stimulus intensity requires turning movements. Many animals show clinotaxis in response to gradients of chemical stimulation. Tropotaxis. It is the direct orienting locomotory movement of the whole body. Intensities of stimuli on two sides of the body are compared simultaneously, and turning movement towards less stimulated or more stimulated side is made without any trial movements. Telotaxis. It is a form of directional orientation that does not depend upon simultaneous comparison of the stimulation from two receptors. When there are two sources of stimulation, the animal moves towards one and never in a median direction, showing that the influence of one of the stimuli is inhibited. Myotaxis. It is a form of telotaxis that involves orientation at an angle to the direction of stimulation. Now the main topic, that is reflex action. What happens when a source of light approaches our eye? We then start to blink our eyes. The pupil of the eye changes in size. So here light acts as an stimulus. Again, if we prick by a pin, we withdraw our hand or leg with a sudden jerk. Here also Pain acts as an stimulus. We cough or sneeze because there is a nasal irritation in our nasal passage. When a blow in our knee, we feel a sudden jerk. When you accidentally place your hand on a hot pot, we jerk it back before we even become consciously aware to the situation. So, in all these cases, the common thing is the stimulus. It is the external stimulus. So, the question is, who control all these responses? How it happens automatically? The answer is, reflex action is controlled by central nervous system and spinal cord. A reflex is an unvarying and automatic response to a specific stimulus. Reflexes are regarded as the functional unit of nervous system. Reflexes are considered as the simplest units of behavior. A reflex is an automatic response of part of the body to a stimulus. Most of the internal mechanisms of the body are regulated by reflex actions. Many responses to external stimuli are also reflex actions. In this diagram, there are two types of reflexes, withdrawal reflex and knee jerk reflex. Now we see why is reflex action important. A reflex is an involuntary motor response to a sensory stimulus. Reflexes perform many jobs for our central nervous system. They protect us from danger, they help us move our body, they help us see, etc. Why are reflex actions so quick? Most reflexes do not have to travel up to our brain to be processed, which is why they take place so quickly. A reflex arc starts off with receptors being excited. They then send signals along a sensory neuron to our spinal cord, where the signals are passed on to a motor neuron. Parts of reflex action. Receptor. It is the site of stimulus action. Sensory neuron. It transmits afferent impulses to central nervous system. Integration center. It is either monosynaptic or polysynaptic region within central nervous system. Motor neuron. It controls effector organs. Effector. It is mostly the muscles. Somatic reflexes. The skeletal muscles are unlearned muscles mediated by spinal cord. Mechanism of reflex action. If we accidentally touch something hot, then what happens? Receptor in the skin detects a stimulus. Sensory neuron send impulses to a relay neuron, which is located in the spinal cord of the central nervous system. Motor neuron sends electrical impulses to an effector. Effector produces the desired response. In this diagram, reflex action happens through the reflex arc, which is a neural pathway that controls the reflexes. In this diagram, this is the sensory neuron. We know that nerve cell is the longest cell in body. This sensory neuron receives the impulses from the receptor and sends it to the relay neuron, which is located in the spinal cord of the central nervous system. Then the electrical impulses is received by the motor neuron, which ends in the effector, which is a bicep muscle. The muscle contracts and we withdraw the parts being stimulated. In all vertebrate, the spinal cord has two main functions: integration of reflex action and conduction of nerve impulses to and from the brain, establishing connection between peripheral and central nervous system. A reflex arc is the simplest but complete functional unit of the nervous system, capable of detecting change and causing a response. It is a means for automatic and rapid adjustment to maintain homeostasis without consulting brain. Automatic responses carried out at the level of spinal cord and without any conscious efforts are part of the everyday existence of most living organisms. Types of reflex arc. There are two types of reflex arc: autonomic reflex arc and somatic reflex arc. Autonomic reflex arc affecting inner organs and somatic reflex arc affecting the muscles. When a reflex arc consists of only two neurons, one sensory neuron and one motor neuron, it is defined as monosynaptic. Monosynaptic refers to the presence of a single chemical synapse. A reflex arc consists of three neurons: sensory neuron, interneuron or relay neuron, and motor neuron. A reflex arc is a neural pathway that controls a reflex. In vertebrates, most sensory neurons do not pass directly into the brain, but synapse in the spinal cord. This allows for faster reflex actions to occur by activating spinal motor neurons without the delay of routing signals through the brain. Types of reflexes. Monosynaptic reflex. In some cases, the reflex involves only one group of synapses between sensory and motor neurons. This category includes the leg jerk reflex and consists of a receptor, an afferent or sensory neurons, central nervous system, an efferent neuron and an effector. Polysynaptic reflex. Withdrawal reflexes are polysynaptic. Such reflexes require participation of three sets of neurons. Suppose we accidentally raised our hand on a hot stove. Almost instantly and before we became consciously aware of the pain, we jerk our hands away. Unconditioned reflex. Unconditioned reflexes are those which are present at birth and which do not depend upon previous experience. They are characteristics of the species and are inherited as such. Conditioned reflex. These reflexes have to depend upon previous experience. Movements associated with walking, eating, drinking, or driving may be performed on a reflex level once they are well learned. Patellar reflex. The simple knee jerk or patellar reflex, it is the simplest known class of reflexes. It requires a chain of only 2 sets of neurons. Facilitating reflex. Some reflex actions do involve parts of the brain, but these are the so-called lower parts, functionally similar to the spinal cord and have nothing to do with conscious thoughts. An example would be a mother's conscious inhibition of a withdrawal reflex if it meant dropping a hot pot of soup upon her child at play on the floor. Stress reflex, also called myotatic reflexes. They are the only monosynaptic reflexes found in the body. Flexor reflex, also known as withdrawal reflex. Visceral reflex. There are several papillary reflexes including the light reflexes. Here are some pictures of different types of reflexes. Here I want to add some human reflexes. Bicep reflex, brachioradialis reflex, extensor digitorum reflex, triceps reflex, patellar reflex or knee jerk reflex, and ankle jerk reflex. So from this presentation, now we can say that reflexes protect your body from things that can harm it. It is important that reflexes occur without the need for thinking about them. And reflexes allow your body to react in ways that help you to be safe, to stand upright, and to be active. So that's all for today. Thank you.